we got some tough fighters, some people making their UFC debuts. However, we got some experienced fighters nonetheless. And let me just ask you, AJ, real quick. Did you do a little bit of homework on Tough, man? Did you get to see any of the tough fights? Yeah?
I did, brother. I did. I actually I saw that it was the tough finale. So I didn't watch all the soap opera. I won't lie to you. I didn't watch, every single episode, but what I did do was pick on the episode and then go right to the
Yeah,
end,
right.
watch the fights going forward. I know I missed some good stuff, some back and forth between the fighters and between the coaches and stuff, but not necessarily my jam on that soap opera mix. Although it did look like there was a lot of fun going back and forth. So I will say that, but I was able to watch all the episodes. And it was an interesting one, man. I had a lot of favorites going in that didn't really do so hot. There's a lot of non-favorites that were looking real good.
Yeah.
And a lot of the what crazy to me is a lot of the people the coaches picked in the beginning didn't really do that hot. There was a lot of them there. They were saying like, "Oh, this guy, he's in his own world, like whatever," and he did pretty damn well.
Yeah, man, it's kind of like the Kelvin Gastelum situation, right? Where I think he was like picked last or whatever, and now he's one of the most legit fighters coming out of the middleweight division in the UFC. But let me just catch you up really quick, folks, if you haven't been watching Tough. So Andre Petroski, he was like the number one pick for Team Ortega going into Tough 29, right? And Michael Gillmore, he's actually a late replacement. So what that means is that one of the fighters, I believe it was on Team Ortega, I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but he suffered an injury and he couldn't continue, and basically that just put him out. So they needed a replacement. Michael Gillmore, this was a dude who was trying to get onto Tough. He didn't make it initially. However, he stayed in Vegas just in case somebody fell out. And that's what happens when opportunity meets preparation. So he gets in, he gets his first fight, he gets submitted in like 30 seconds. It was a quick night at the office. So Michael Gillmore has a lot of experience. He has fought a couple of some names, something like that in the regional scene, but nonetheless, very unimpressive showing for him on The Ultimate Fighter. And now we're going against the number one dude, or the supposed, number one dude going into Tough versus Michael Gillmore, the late replacement on Tough. It's kind of skewed odds, and you can see that for a reason, folks. So that's your little bit of catch up for this matchup specifically. Minus 400 is Andre Petroski, plus 300 is Michael Gillmore. And unfortunately, folks, because I can't, even when you pull it up on Tapology or none of that stuff, it doesn't have like the Tough, I keep saying Tough, that's mean the Ultimate Fighter. It doesn't have the Ultimate Fighter like little exhibition bouts that they've had on there, but they have just their regular record. Nonetheless, for Andre Petroski, the man is a wrestler, man. He doesn't have the greatest striking in the world, but the man can wrestle, and that's basically his game plan. He says, I'm going to walk forward, I'm going to wrestle you up, and there's nothing you can do about it. Where Michael Gillmore is a little more of a balanced fighter. He's got a little bit of wrestling, a little bit of jiu-jitsu, a little bit of striking, but he's overall what I would consider a balanced fighter. Now, there's not going to be as much to talk about in these matchups, clearly, AJ, because they don't have that much experience. But I will say that for Andre Petroski, who is a former regional champ with 2 defenses, he has 1 fight in the LFA, pretty impressive, and he has a 7-1 amateur record. So that means he has 14 total fights. That's pretty experienced for a dude making their UFC debut, right?
Oh yeah, and he does fight like it too. Petroski walks in there with a lot of confidence. He knows exactly the game plan. I love the quote that Team Ortega had, where it's like, "Yo, the first fight was Andre Petroski versus their last or their first pick or something like that." Where he's like, "Yo, he doesn't have any submission finishes. You want to go finish this dude?" It's like, let's get it. Yeah, Petroski, he does have a lot of experience going forward. But my biggest thing against him, and this is actually the dude I picked to go all the way from the very beginning in the first one. He just looks like an absolute bruiser. But he gasses out carrying all that muscle. He gasses out pretty quick. And I think it was either the battle fight or the Urbina fight, where I forgot which one he had, where he gassed out and got beat up. It was the Brian Battle fight, and he got beat up. It was pretty good show on the other side. But Petroski, he looks the part, man, and he definitely comes in with the experience for it.
Yeah, man, that was one of those things where I was like, okay, Petroski's going to come in here. He's going to steamroll the guy, because Battle was like the last pick on of Team Volkanovski, right? So it was another one of those like Cinderella stories. But I was like, all right, Petroski's going to steamroll the dude. And that's what happens, man. Cardio or fatigue, right? Conditioning, fatigue, that makes a coward of all men, right? And that goes to show for Andre Petroski as well. But I did just kind of want to point out, because the man is 30 years old, but Michael Gillmore, he's 34 years old. He actually has an 8-2 amateur record, so he has 19 total fights. So he actually has more experience than Petroski, which is really, really interesting. And guess what, AJ? The man also has a win over Chaos Williams in the amateurs. Doesn't mean as much because it's in the amateurs, but nonetheless, a win over Chaos Williams, who is now doing his thing in the UFC, is very, very impressive. Ultimately, man, the gentleman Michael Gillmore, that is his nickname. I like the nickname, you know what I mean? He has a tough task in front of him because he got taken down really easily in his last fight on Tough, and I think that we're going to see a lot more of the same. But the question is going to come, you already brought it up. Do you think Andre Petroski, since losing that, I mean, this is an emotional thing for these dudes. You know, they're really trying to make it onto the UFC scene. Do you believe that taking that loss in Tough is going to motivate him even more to make sure that cardio is right, or at least to pace himself out a little bit and not gas himself out, not use as much energy in the very beginning? Do you think he will have learned the lesson from the heartbreak that it was that defeat on Tough? And now, because this is not a Tough type fight, man, this is literally just a UFC fight. You know what I'm saying? What do you think? Do you think that happens or not?
Yeah, I do. I definitely think it happens, especially because, like you said, it's a UFC fight now. They're on a big stage. Everything's being televised. Even though it's a baby crowd, there's still a crowd there. And definitely, once you take those L's, you get pretty dominated by the guy you were supposed to dominate. And they had a weird thing in the Andre Petroski Brian Battle fight where they went to replay because Petroski was talking about a headbutt. It's a headbutt that cut him. And they went to replay and they showed a knee that didn't hit anywhere near what they were talking about. And they're like, no, it wasn't a headbutt, it was a knee. But there was like so many different angles or so many different exchanges in which it could have happened. They just like chose one. I was like, that's the weirdest thing they could have done. Like, why even go to the replay? Like, it's not like the replay is going to not make the cut happen anymore. But I definitely think he learned from that experience that he needs to, not necessarily be worried about all the other stuff, really just be worried about the fight. And I definitely think going into this one coming forward, we're going to see a lot more of that tenacity and that dog in him that we were all expecting to see in The Ultimate Fighter. What do you think, Derek?
I agree. I think there's nothing that motivates a man more than pride or getting your pride hurt, getting that ego hurt. That makes you really reevaluate some things and say, like, listen, man, I got beat by the dude I was supposed to starch. And that's a problem, especially because they was exchanging a couple of harsh words. I think Battle was like, "Oh, see you little bitch! I told you I didn't fucking," it was like that. And it's like that's nationally televised, man. This is on ESPN, so hopefully he comes back and he comes back with a vengeance. But Michael Gillmore is no slouch. The man got experience. So ultimately, with this being said, I do think Michael Gillmore is a little bit. The number might be a little too high with that plus 300. I think it should be a little bit closer, given that we have seen Petroski has the cardio issues. But then again, Michael Gillmore is kind of the dark horse because we just haven't seen much. We saw 30 seconds of him fight, and that's it. So we'll see what happens. I need to see a little more film because the man he's a big striker. When it comes to the feet, I think he has the edge on the feet for sure. But give me your pick on this one, AJ.
Yeah, I'm going Petroski KO round one. I'm going an early fight on this one. It might even be a submission, TKO submission, whatever you want to say, round one. And it's just rough for Gillmore because he is coming in late, and on his last late replacement fight, came in on 2 days' notice, got choked out in 30 seconds. So I definitely think the game plan for Petroski is get this dude on the ground, put the belt to him, and just get the work in. I'm going Petroski KO submission round one. Who you got, Derek, and why?
Okay, so I agree with you on the pick, but I don't agree on the methodology. I think Petroski does get the job done. I think he'll be able to overwhelm Gillmore with his wrestling, but I do think Gillmore on a full camp, not a 2 days notice, let me get in there and just see what happens. I think he'll be much more prepared, especially because these dudes have all been watching each other fight. You know what I'm saying? So you have that, like, you see, like, okay, this is what he does good. This is where we need to attack. You got a game plan catered to this person specifically. I think Petroski gets the job done via unanimous decision. He just wrestles him up. I don't think he'll be able to get the knockout on Gillmore, man. I think Gilmore's a little too experienced. But all right on, man. So we move on to